workplace, to use one word for it, it's stressful. In the organisations I visit, I just think, wow, you guys are just working so hard all the time.
Yeah.
And you're trying to catch up. And that alone, the stress usually causes, in emotional intelligence, I call it a follow-on behaviour. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine last time you were really stressed or frustrated, and how your behaviour changed to other people around you, you'll probably find you were slightly more sharp, maybe less empathetic, because you were just so wiped out with whatever's going on. But we need to think more about is the empathy side, because organisations are so stressed now. They're trying to do so much more for less.
Hello and welcome to the Knowness podcast, the vault of knowledge. My guest today is Mac Macdonald. Mac Macdonald is the founder and managing director of Lap Solutions, a company that helps businesses get the best out of their people by focusing on emotional intelligence, leadership, and workplace culture. He spent over 35 years in the world of training and development, including 22 years in the British Army, where he taught leadership and people skills. Mac is also the CEO of Flow, a charity that supports people who've been through war or trauma. My name is Naseem Reski, and welcome to the Vault of Knowledge. So, war. War has changed a lot since your time in the service. Do you think soldiers are coming home with different wounds than they did 20 years ago?
I think in terms of the sort of side that we focus on, that post-traumatic stress disorder, I think it's exactly what it is. So whether somebody's come back from a war, even going back to Second World War sort of times, you know, it's still PTSD. It still affects them in the same sort of way they've seen or done horrors. And so the way we look at it is exactly that. We don't differentiate. We talk about different war times, perhaps, or different operations and things that people have been on. But then, as in the sort of pre-talk, it's to do with PTSD is not necessarily just from war, it's from other things, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, because war's changed quite a lot from like World War I to like modern warfare to now how like there's a lot of drones, but you'd say like the mental wounds, the PTSD is the same. Yeah. Transitioning on to, from that to you personally, could you give us a history of Mac Macdonald?
Wow, yeah, where we go. So I started out as what they used to call it second man on a lorry. So where you see young people in the passenger side, they're helping out the lorry driver, etc. So I was doing that. Yeah. And then I left on to that, went to become a barman. I was a farmhand for a while. And then eventually I decided it'd be a good idea to join the army. Variously good idea. And did that for 22 years. And in there I specialised in training. And it was very much in recruit training, things like that, the sort of subjects you'd imagine that soldiers get taught. And also more latterly in mountain training. So I was a joint service mountain expedition leader. And that was just advising organisations how to get their people onto the hills, train them on various things, mountain craft as we used to call it. And then left the army in July 24th, 2000. And I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do until somebody said to me, you've been doing training in the army for 20 odd years, so why not become a trainer, which I did. And I sort of fell into training and discovered, I was really worried it's going to be really different compared to the army. We call outside the army Civilian Street. And I thought Civvy Street is going to be really, really different, but it wasn't. It's still training. And I thought people would be trained differently, delegates would be different, but actually it's all very much the same sort of thing. And I did that for some years. And then eventually I got to the point where I got frustrated because I was asked to do things for organisations and run training courses that maybe I didn't think fitted what they required. So I eventually became a self-employed freelance trainer, which is a little bit more dangerous because you're obviously waiting for that pay packet and you've got to generate the business, etc. But I enjoyed it thoroughly because I was completely free to say what I wanted, advise people on what I thought they really needed in their organisation and challenge. And part of my superpower is being autistic, believe it or not, because that allows me to be very direct. And I sometimes miss the social cues that we should have in business. And I just tell people exactly what I think, because I think as a consultant, surely that's what you're being paid for. I don't want to come to your organisation and say, oh, it's amazing, when I'm thinking, oh my God, what a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to look at this.
You need to say what's there, what's
Indeed,
apparent.
yeah. So I had the freedom to do that, which was really good. And then I suddenly realised that people loved that. Well, sorry, Some people loved it, some people did not.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
I was doing about 18 months in an organisation, and the managing director asked me to come down and have a chat with him. And I thought we meant like one-to-one coffee like you were having now, to chat.
Of course, yeah.
And it wasn't. I walked in and he was in the boardroom with all the sort of senior people in the organisation.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right, okay. And he said, so you've been doing this for about 18 months now? And he said, most of the people here, they've done it, but he says, it's just not working. So what's going on? And I said, well, maybe we could talk about this privately. And he said, no. He says, I want to find out what's going on. I said, okay, then. I said, you're the problem. I said, you're the bottleneck. And everybody sort of, you can see all the physical reactions.
Yeah, that must have been crazy.
And he said, what? And I said, you are. I said, look, I get the trustful conversations with people like these and their colleagues, and they say the problem is,
at the top,
and the buck stops there.
Yeah.
So you guys upstairs think you know it all and don't need this program, but in actual fact, your people courageously say they do. And I'm not saying you did anything wrong per se. You're not doing anything purposely wrong. You just need to, and that was the end of the conversation, and I was escorted out the building.
Wow.
Gone. But here's the thing, and this is the really good thing for that man. I mean, I take my hat off to him, because 2 weeks later he called me up and he said, can we meet for a coffee? And I said, sure, I'll come back down. He said, no, I'll come up to Birmingham. I thought, okay. Yeah. So we met, and he said, and I love the way he was so honest, and he said, I wasn't going to do this. He said, but the reason I'm here is that my wife got so fed up with me, because she said, she knew I knew you were right. And she eventually kicked me and said, go and see him.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, really, that's very courageous, for someone to do that.
It is.
So we chatted, and he said, right, what do we need to do? And I said, well, you need to get your people. I'll just do a couple of summary sessions so you know what these guys have been taught and why they're thinking you're not doing what you should. Mm-hmm. And it was great. It worked really, really well. So I think that's what I love about what I do is, I know we're going to talk about the charity, but both my jobs in the learning development side of things, organisational culture, etc., and the charity for mental health, I just look at it as helping people.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah, it is, 100%. Yeah. And more importantly, the people, for example, if you're the CEO of an organisation, you don't want to get involved directly into that side of things. So you've got people that do that for you. And sometimes it's good to get an external person to come out who's been around loads of organisations like I have and say, what about this?
And with the experience, the practical wisdom to help and whatnot. I wanted to ask you a question related to this. What do you think is harder to fix? A toxic culture or a toxic leader?
Oh, well, it depends on how you're going to fix it. So the culture itself is huge, because you've got to firstly, if I can give you an example, so let's just say you've got an organisation and you realise you've got a very toxic culture, and let's arguably just say you've got somebody who's probably a director sort of level who's causing this bottleneck and all this problem. There's a huge lack of psychological safety there. So one of the things when I go and talk to an organisation and they'll say to me, give me an idea of the sort of things we might need, I'll mention psychological safety and emotional intelligence. And psychological safety, if you water it right down, is the ability for anyone in your organisation, regardless of where they are in the hierarchical structure, to say exactly what they want to whomever they want, as long as it's polite, professionally done, respectful, that sort of thing. Because why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's your business, you'd want people to talk honestly so you could hear what's going wrong there, what's going wrong there.
Exactly.
Get one of your people to go and fix that. But going back to your original question on the culture, it's got to come from the top. Yeah. So that phrase, lead by example, some people say it's old, outdated. I don't think it is. We should all, as people, as humans, lead by example. Even when I walk into Birmingham, I try and lead by example by how I treat other people. Yeah. And sometimes when they're a bit not so nice to me, etc., I try and think, well, look at it from their shoes. We have a term we created in the leadership side of things called moccasin approach. And the moccasin approach is, the old phrase of walking in miles in somebody else's moccasins or shoes, etc.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
But, well, it's allegedly coming from an old saying, Native American saying, but in actual fact it's not. It's from a poem by Mary Lathrop in 1895 called Judge Softly. And it sounds exactly what it means.
Yeah, to judge softly.
So in the organisation, if you can make the moccasin approach work really well, then people will look at others, and before they communicate, they'll think, well, where are they? What's their perspective? How do they feel in their position? Yeah. And when managers and leaders do that, they start to build trust, and that's hard to do. Can I do a little experiment with you?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right, so this thing I'll do in one of our training sessions. Gotcha. So I want you to imagine, don't say anything out loud, but think in your head, if you had to go and have a really heart-to-heart conversation with somebody who needed some help, think about who that person or some of those people, who they might be. Okay. Now, it might be family, it might be close friends, it could be anybody at all. Yeah. And without telling us who it is, can you think of some of the reasons that you'd go to those people? What is it about them that would make you go? And if you're happy to share that.
Well, the person I'm thinking of is very, I'm very open with them. So I feel I can say anything. There's also no fear of judgment as well. And I think also because we relate on many different things. And, you know, they're a good friend of mine. And I think that's like the main thing is that lack of judgment. Cool. That easy to speak to them. Yeah.
Now, in work, the thing is we don't normally have that because we're not best friends with everybody. Let's face it,
it's just work colleagues.
But I use that as the best friend activity. It's like do a health check on your own head and think, well, who do I go and speak to? Why do I speak to those people? What is it? And when you boil it all down, it's trust.
Yeah.
You completely trust that person. That's why you'll go and have a chat with them. And one of the other additives sort of benefits is I'll bet you anything that person will tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And in work...
Which is why they're good to have.
Exactly, yeah. So why do we do that in work? You know, so imagine if leaders and managers had that sort of a Moccasin approach and go to their people and ask them those sort of questions and say, what's going on? What's making it good for you? What's bad?
Yeah.
And have the courage to say, I want to be a better leader. I want to be a better manager. What's it going to take from your perspective for me to be that? Because you want something different. Somebody else might want something different. So you need to almost, what's the right word? Fit your particular approach with you and then someone differently and someone differently again. In your whole team, you might have very different characteristics and people who are in some neurodiversity. So you've got to be able to engage with those the way they want to be engaged with.
Yeah.
But the underpinning thing, of course, is you've still got a job and you're getting paid to do a job, so you've got to do that well.
Of course, yeah.
So
because I did have a bit of experience like that at work with someone who we used to frequently clash, but he used to always just tell me directly what it was I was doing wrong, where I needed to improve. There was no, fakeness or anything like that. It was just very direct and blunt, which I really appreciated in the end. Initially, I didn't, but then I just ended up becoming a better worker. So, and we became better friends afterwards as well. So I think it worked out perfectly. Just going back to the other one, so you've got the toxic culture, but the toxic person. Yeah.
So that's difficult, especially if it's somebody quite high up.
Yeah.
And this is where...
There's like that power dynamic. And
it's massive. And if I'm worried about opening up and saying something and being persecuted by that person, I'm not going to say boo. And that's the problem. So if you said to me, how do we fix that? Well, it would be very difficult internally unless you've got a very strong character within HR, like you're the head of HR, because you ideally need somebody who's of similar level within the hierarchical system.
Of course.
Or oddly enough, one of my jobs is with a couple of companies we work with, and they'll ask me to go in and have a chat. And I think that's really quite clever because what it means is I'm outside of the organisation. I've got none of this sort of internal politics going on. Or So I can go in and chat to that person and they can chat more freely to me because they know it's 100% confidential. It's not going to go anywhere else. No one else sees it. So therefore it can't impact. And they feel they can be so much more honest. Yeah. And I can ask them questions and make them realise there's a type of question called Socratic questions. And you ask them in such a way that you are trying to push their thinking down a certain way. So they suddenly have a bit of self-awareness and go, wow, okay, so I could be impacting other people like that.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like a very indirect way of approach of making them think a bit more.
Yeah.
I see.
If that works, that's great. But let's just say it doesn't. Let's say that was you. Sorry, you're now the bad person.
Yeah.
Right? And I come and chat to you and it doesn't work and we tried it 3 times.
Yeah.
Then at that time, in my opinion, and this is where some people differ, I think, why is that person allowed to work for us?
I see. Okay.
If they're continually having that impact on the other people in the organisation and arguably have an impact on our business because of how they are and what other people are saying outside the organisation.
To change and
then you need to manage them and their expectations to either improve or leave.
Yeah, gotcha. I think it's fair, to be honest, because at that point you're doing more harm than good. There's a term as well, organisational self-harm. What does that look like in real life and who's usually responsible?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's just hit my head there is if we go back to that scenario, we've got a toxic culture.
It's very similar to what we've been discussing. Yeah.
If no one's doing anything about that, and when I say doing anything about it, really doing something about it, it's like sometimes you'll get an organisation will say, well, let's put out a questionnaire. Let's do a people survey to see how people truly are. Well, they're not going to answer that 100% truthfully because they're terrified you know who said what.
Yeah.
You know? So I've been in organisations where they've had really good cultures and people have responded and some of them have even said, and here's my name. So the option's there, and I think that's a powerful thing if you're trying to change culture, is say to people, look, it's anonymous, but if you wish to put your name, we'd love that.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is by, say, 10% of the people put their name, then that is the evidence that it's safe to speak out. Because if those 10% people don't get persecuted from what they've said,
exactly,
that means there is an element of psychological safety there.
Yeah. But
if it's just a tick box type exercise, and we're saying, well, we put out this and everybody says they're happy, look at that, 97% of the organisation say they're blissfully happy in work.
Yeah.
Then talk to the people in the organisation, talk to the managers, get them to talk to other people, and you'll find out it's not true.
It's not, yeah.
So there's the
self-harm.
It's just a tick
box thing
you're just not doing it in the right way. And I think,
so
I'm not trying to blow our own business as being brilliant, but I think that's the difference with the consultation sort of thing. I can go into an organisation, we can keep it totally confidential, and they can say, this is the problem, this is not being fixed, how can we do it? And I'll say, here's some things you can do.
And I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. The moccasin approach.
Moccasin,
that's the one we mentioned.
The shoes,
the moccasins, it highlights the need for empathy in the workplace. How do you feel about the current mindset trend that glorifies relentless hustle and individualism?
I mean, the modern workplace, if you ask me to use one word for it, it's stressful.
Yeah.
I really think, and it's a shame to say that, but in the organisations I visit, I just think, wow, you guys are just working so hard all the time.
Yeah.
And you're trying to catch up. And that alone, not the stress usually causes, in emotional intelligence, I call it a follow-on behaviour. So if you imagine last time you're really stressed or frustrated, and how your behaviour changed to other people around you, you'll probably find you were slightly more sharp, maybe less empathetic, because you were just so wiped out with whatever's going on. And I think that's where that side of it we need to think more about, is the empathy side, because organisations are so stressed now and they're trying to do so much more for less.
There's a thing I saw related to this about, because obviously, so I want to get into medicine, and with a lot of medical practice, sometimes it gets like that. When you're stressed and you have a long list of patients, sometimes it's, doctors end up in a situation where they don't practice as much empathy as they should. And there was a study related to this I saw, which is very interesting. You might find it interesting, where I think it was a bunch of people training to become priests. I don't remember where it was. And they were supposed to deliver a lecture in another building. So they split them into two groups. The first group, they told them they were very, very late. The second group, they told them they were on time. And to get to this building where they had to do the lecture, there's someone on the floor who was clearly needed help in an alleyway, and they had to go through him. The first group that was very late, I don't remember the exact statistics. I think it was only maybe 30%, 20% that stopped to help him. But of the group that was on time, I think it was 60 or 70% that stopped to help. So it shows you the pressures that, time and organizational pressures, the impact this can have on empathy and stuff like that in the workplace, which is a negative feedback loop, which I'm sure you've experienced and you've seen yourself.
No, that example is classic.
Yeah.
And you'll see it literally in the corridors of organisations.
Yeah, literally,
where people are walking past each other and they're going, how are you doing? And they're still walking the other direction.
Exactly,
Never do.
Exactly, yeah.
It's crazy. Whereas I think and I'm going back some years now, there's an organisation we worked with. And what I loved about it is they had specific time slots and areas. I mean, it's a huge organisation for people to go and chat and have a coffee.
Yeah.
And I still think to this day that if you allow people to de-stress during the day for 15, 20 minutes, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's really good for the mindset. They refresh the brain. They can go on. And they keep that social thing going in the work. Whereas you get a taskmaster that says, you're employed to do your job, get on with your work, stop all this chatting. You're actually doing the wrong thing, I think.
Exactly, yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And recently in the news, I'm not sure if you've seen the recent clash between Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Who hasn't?
Yeah. Do you think this sets a bad example for workplaces and normalizes high profile workplace toxicity, or what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that whole thing because, I mean, if I just go back to, again, I'm an older person, so if I look back at the American presidents I've seen, they are presidential. They would not have that. They would not show that side of things.
Yeah.
They might very cleverly put something in an argument politically to say about something about him, and then he would do something quite similar, say back.
Usually it'd be like
and that's like your political shenanigans, your political football that goes on. Whereas this is like just two kids in the play park.
Literally,
Oh, you said that. Well, I'm going to say this then. And I think that shows a very bad example.
I think it risks normalizing that behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is insane. That's just out there, just like that.
It's bizarre, I mean, every time I always watch the news in the morning, and I watch quite a few different news channels, and it's all over it, and I just think, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Just like that.
Not good.
So how can leaders avoid the trap of a one-size-fits-all management when every individual and team needs something different to thrive?
So just do it differently.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, because the thing is, if they don't realise that, they'll never do it.
Yeah.
And I often say that you've got to be very careful about criticising somebody because it could be something they're not doing or doing wrong that's unconscious. They're not aware of it.
Yeah.
In fact, can I give you an example?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So one of our programs, with some of the organisations, they'll agree for us to do this because it's quite a big ask for people.
Yeah.
And on the program, we'll say to the leaders and managers, right, we'll go back after this session, we'll have a month's break, do the next session. But then during that period, I want you to write to all the people that report to you. And I want you to say to them, I'm on this course, do this program, different subjects. And one of them is about literally us being better leaders, managers, whichever one they are. How could I be a better manager for you? What is it you'd like me to stop doing, do more of, that sort of thing? And that's quite a big thing to ask, especially the senior leaders, to go down. Anyway, so on this next session, went in and said, right, how did that go? And this woman over here on the sort of left-hand side went, I did it, and I got quite a surprising response. And I said, are you happy to share that? And she said, I'd love to. I said, great.
Yeah.
What happened? And she went, well, I got the email and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to say it. So she said, I put down my main grievance and I sent it back. And she said, to my amazement, the phone went and it was my boss. And he said, I first have to apologise because I've just read your email and I'm absolutely heartbroken that you felt like this for so long and hadn't told me. Now, for me, that part is extraordinarily powerful because he'd no idea.
Yeah.
He was unaware of it completely. And she didn't feel safe saying to him, you should really think this way and, what about that?
Yeah.
So it wasn't purposeful. That was unconscious by him. And because there wasn't enough psychological safety, she didn't feel safe enough to
bring it
say
up and
something
to speak about it, yeah.
As soon as this happened, he said, so what I want to do is if you're free in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes, let's go for a coffee. So they went down, they met at the front door, they went out on the street, they grabbed a coffee and they walked up and down and they spent over an hour just walking up and down chatting.
Oh, okay, wow, yeah.
And that was the start of what's still now an absolutely fantastic relationship.
Yeah.
And because of that, other people saw that and went, wow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's all about building the evidence.
Yeah, and at least like a domino effect.
100%. And then publicising that.
Yes,
so if something like that happens, you put it onto the intranet or whatever you've got internally, and people go, all right, so maybe it is safe.
Yeah, maybe I can speak, maybe
and
I can...
gradually, they start doing that.
And then that safety, it starts to build and that feeling of safety. So in your experience, what does real leadership accountability look like? And why do so many organizations let toxic behavior slide under the radar?
Oh, so we've got half a day for this, yeah? Can I ask you just to repeat that first part?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So what does real leadership accountability look like?
Okay. So we talk about something called, we created this thing called the Archway approach. And the first three parts are accountability, responsibility, and consequences. So one of the biggest problems in organizations, leaders, etc., is, say, for example, you are reporting to me, and I'll say to you, we need to get this going, etc. It's not really going brilliantly, but can you fix it? And you don't really do much about it. And I constantly let this happen, and you're a little bit late for work, and all these little things, and I never really address it because I've not got the skills to do that. Because in the UK, we're terrible. We never educate anybody about leadership management until they get a leadership management position. Too late. So the accountability and responsibility, organizations mention all the time, but the consequence part, I think as a nation, general speaking here, we're not good at doing that. And we're a bit scared about having a challenging conversation with our people. So if you want to change that, make sure people understand about leadership, and it's fascinating when I go into organizations and of course you become like that trusted person who's coming in every month for 10 months or a year, whatever it is. And gradually people start chatting about how it's changed and what it's made them do. And I just came back from an organization in Burton-on-Trent, and they're a classic organization where they had various problems going on. And what was so courageous about them is they got their founders, their top people, the 3 top directors, they got all their senior leaders, managers, etc., team leaders, and they got them into the program. And so those directors sat at that table and, shared, etc. So that's really powerful. And just last week, there was one of the managers there saying, it just changed me so much. It's allowed me to understand how to deal with the people in the team better. That's it. Because so often in that organization where it's not working properly and that accountability isn't working, people don't know how to fix it. Because like I said, they haven't been trained previously. So they look at how their manager treated them or their leader treated them, and it almost continues. It's like a vicious cycle.
And do you think anyone can become a good leader?
If you said to me, do some people hold certain traits, natural traits? Yeah. I think absolutely. If I think about both my kids who are in their 30s, they're both very different people. And I would say that my daughter's extraordinarily empathetic. She's really good at understanding people, caring about people, etc. And my son is still got those empathetic sort of traits within him, but he's very focused, very focused on work, etc. He likes thinking about things in certain ways. So they are two different people, but they can both be excellent leaders. But I do think if you want someone to be an amazing leader, you do need to make sure they are taught in some way with a reputable. I'm going to go on to qualifications now. Because some qualifications are very sheep-dip operations. So if you want to go into level 7 qualification for something, some sort of leadership, it's taught exactly the same to every single person. And I just think when you do an organisational one and it's for your people, it can be tailor-made to address certain aspects. So one of the things I'll do is I'll go in and say, we don't do sheep-dip. What's going on? Mm-hmm. It's like I arrived at an organisation recently and they said, so what have you taken from our website? I said, I haven't looked at it. Yeah. And they were a bit shocked and went, what? I said, well, look, that's just your painting of what you say the organisation looks like. What you want people to see. I said, I'm here for a reason. You've got problems. Tell me the problems and I'll tell you what's going on.
Yeah. This reminds me of, like Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, the cooking thing, yeah.
Yeah. It comes in, like, sorts out all the issues and everything.
Oh, right.
Yeah. After all this wisdom today, I'm thinking about, having a chat with our CEO to discuss the workplace culture. But when it comes to me as an individual, what can I do to help? Our workplace is fine, just to stuff out there. But what can I do as an individual to try and boost workplace morale and that kind of stuff, and to reduce the toxicity?
I think that's a really important question because so many people in the sort of lower positions in organisations feel powerless.
Yeah.
And they will keep feeling like that until the organisation does something differently. So it all comes down to the safety. It really does. Because if you think about yourself in a huge team with a huge organisation, it could be risky for you to say something. Now, we talk about something called an OCET. It's an OCET, so it's an organisational culture engagement team. Now, organisations don't usually have those, but you could argue that lives in some way in some very good HR organisations within the organisation. Departments, I should say. Now, if they're really good, and they'll have things like people like HRBPs, the HR business partners, those business partners will go into the organisation, into the teams, and start to get to know the teams really well. And as they're in there, they'll realise what's going on. And if that's a great HR setup, they'll know how to address that, and they'll spot someone like you and say, right, this is what we plan to do. And we have an open little forum, just that 2 or 3, 4 people within the team, whatever it is, and we talk about how things can be made better in an adult-to-adult way. No one gets upset. No one's offering offence. This is us trying to help ourselves to become more effective. If you look at that term, high-performing teams, high-performing teams support each other. They literally help each other when they don't even know they've got people struggling, because people don't go up and say, I've got too much on or something. They can spot it because they know each other so well. We go back to that thing about the best friend activity. Yeah. They know each other so well, they'll spot things and they'll gradually help each other out. Yeah. And then other teams see that and go, I could do with that.
Yeah, because that's a bit how it's like in my workplace. Because we're so small, we can just notice if someone's feeling a bit off. And just to tell them, if you want to take 5 minutes in the back just to unwind, relax, do you know what I mean? And it just boosts, I enjoy going to work, do you know what I mean? Because of stuff like this. I wanted to ask as well, when it comes to leadership in the office versus leadership in the military, are they similar, the workplaces, or can you give us any insights about that?
Well, to give you an idea, I joined the army in 1978.
Gotcha.
So it was pretty different back then. Yeah. And there was an old sort of saying, give me an order and tell me to jump how high, and et cetera, and all this other stuff. And it was take an order, do it, that's it, no discussion. And I think gradually my problem became I didn't like leadership in how it worked in the army. I didn't like management. And I remember one particular occasion I got in a bit of a trouble for saying something, and I ended up going up to speak to a very senior officer, and I was getting charged, as they call it, so I was in trouble.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
And he turned around and said to me, why on earth do you do this? Why do you say? And of course, I didn't know I was autistic at this time. I didn't even know it. I didn't think I'd even heard of it. So I just turned around and said, because it doesn't make sense. I said, you're asking people to do certain things, and they just really don't make big sense. Asks, and you're not trying to inspire them. Or anyway, the long and short of that was I got put into a potential officer candidate's platoon to help with leadership. And so it's almost, that's why I go back about my sort of superpower is when I say things that are quite direct, some people don't like them, but other people just go, wow, okay, that's interesting. Nobody's ever said that before. I said, well, yeah, you need to hear it. So leadership's changed a lot. I went back, I can't remember how many years ago, it was probably about 10 years ago. I managed to get an interview with an officer in a regiment because I was interested about that. I said, what's leadership now? What's management, as he used to call it? How is it? And it had changed quite a bit. And he was interested in me doing emotional intelligence. He said, do you think we need that in the army? And I said, well, by the bucket load. And then gradually I sort of started doing some more talks with people. And I found out, in fact, that they have got in the Officers Academy in Sandhurst, etc., with the trainings done there for the commissioned officers, they have elements of emotional intelligence in the training. So it's all changed a lot over the years. And I've been out since 2000, so I'm sure it's changed even more.
Amazing, yeah. But that's an interesting thing you bring up, emotional intelligence. How would someone go about training that? Because in my eyes, it's a bit of a difficult one because it's not very...
It's a challenge. I often say to us, the way we do it is there's 4 ingredients. And the first 2 are about yourself. So it's your self-awareness. So what am I like when I get angry? How do I treat people? How does my behavior change? What impacts do I have on other people, positive and negative? And then the other one is self-management. So how do I manage that? How do I mitigate that trigger so that I don't trigger so badly and I don't become angry and short and nasty, etc.? And that's you. Then when you think about everybody else, you've got the social awareness, and that goes back to the Moccasin approach. What does my team need? If I'm just a team member with my colleagues, I still look at it in that regard. What do they need? How can I help? And then as a manager especially, you need to know, because then you need to know how to deal with each person individually. And the final bit is all about that relationship management. So how do we keep that relationship management going? So if you just say to somebody, you need to become more self-aware, they'll go, great, yeah, no problem, I'll do that. But of course you can't unless you've got other people around you telling you what you don't know.
I see.
So we often say to people, one of the biggest things you can do to increase your self-awareness is go back to your team and say to them, listen, guys, I want to know when I upset you. So just send me an email if you don't want to tell me to my face, I don't care. And let me know, because the only way I can do anything about it and become more self-aware is if people tell me what I'm doing and not doing.
Because otherwise you just don't know.
Yeah, you just keep going. And that's the unconscious bit again. It goes back to that man who was treating that woman in that particular way.
Exactly, you had no idea.
He had no idea. So his self-awareness was missing something. She added it on that email and bingo.
And then everything at that point just starts to go. Yeah. You mentioned as well how you were diagnosed with autism later on in life. How has that affected you? Because it must have, you must have started to look back at your life and started to notice things, and things started to make sense, I'm assuming.
You've hit it on the nail on the head, 100%.
Yeah, at that point, you look back in your life and you're like, that makes sense, this makes sense.
Yeah. Because when people just say to me, oh, you're a bit weird, you do this, you do that. And I just thought, well, that's the army, because everything's regimented, it was all structured, etc.
Yeah, it's always specific. And
then there was a woman that turned around to me one day, and it just so happened she was a psychotherapist. And she had experience of treating people with autism, etc., who were autistic. And she said to me, have you ever considered you might be autistic? And I went, no.
Yeah.
She went, there's a lot of things you do, she says, that are traits of an autistic person. So I'm back to my doctor, absolutely lovely gentleman, now retired. And I said, this woman just said, I should really chase up about being autistic. And he said, oh, don't waste your time. You are 100%. And I went, really? I said, why'd you say that? And he said, do you remember the first time we met? I went, vaguely. And he said, you came in, you said, good morning, doctor. You've got a stain on your jersey. And he said, people don't do that because they don't want to cause the embarrassment. But you logically went, he's got a stain, he needs to know, so I'm going to tell him.
Yeah.
And you thought you were doing the right thing. And he said you were. But he said in the terms of social world, he said that's a little bit dangerous,
Yeah.
He said, he said, if you want. And it was interesting because he said, if you want, we can put you forward to get the diagnosis. And I said, but what's the point of having a bit of paper that says you're autistic?
Yeah.
I'm so glad he encouraged me, because like you just said, once I started looking into it, my whole world, going right back to when I was a little boy, opened up in front of me with a huge amount of reasoning. And even the final diagnosis with the psychologist was, he said, it'll take about an hour, 90 minutes at the most. He said, you'll be pretty intense. I loved it. Found it fascinating. And it lasted for 3 hours. We just got on and started chatting,
Yeah.
And it's just certain little quirky things, like you might notice certain things, like sometimes I'll do that with my fingers, and it's not a case that I'm nervous or anything. It just helps me think about certain things. It's called stimming. It's a little stimulation that sort of helps the brain do stuff. But yeah, that was hugely beneficial for me. And it was interesting
from maybe a mental health perspective as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I began to think, Well, it's not necessarily that I'm broken. It's just this is how my brain operates.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, because it's a disorder. I think it's a disorder, and I hate that. When I got diagnosed with PTSD disorder, you know, and then you got autistic syndrome. Is it autistic syndrome disorder now? ASD, I think it is. Mm-hmm. I've always said autism, but it's a disorder, you know. And I think no, we're just different. And then people say, well, what makes all the autistic and neurodiverse people all different? I say, hold on, right. All humans are different. Some of them will be autistic and some won't. I'm not keen on the whole idea about we're all on the spectrum. I don't personally think that's particularly accurate. I think we're either on the spectrum or we're not on the spectrum. And some people have huge disadvantages of the types of autism, like non-verbals and things. Whereas I'm very lucky. It used to be called high performing, but I think that's now an illegal term as well.
Yeah.
So high functioning. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't normally notice there's anything different about me until you start asking me questions, and then you think, oh, he's pretty direct.
Yeah.
Or I don't get certain social cues and I blunder through some social things. And people think, oh, he's a bit rude, but it's unintentional.
Of course, yeah. And it's just part of the condition. That's why the term neurodivergent has become more popular rather than saying disorder and making that out to be as if there's an issue, a problem. Which I think is really good. Shifting from that to talking about PTSD in general, what is it? How does it look like? Because you've seen a lot in the media, but what does PTSD actually, how does it manifest? What does it look like?
Well, if you take the word trauma can be something huge. Mm-hmm. And for some people, it'd be something quite small, but for them, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we need to, when we're looking and using that sort of moccasin approach, we need to think that way. Mm-hmm. Because when you might say, or your friend sat at the end of the sofa says, oh yeah, well, you know, I've got this and that's how I've got it. My reaction might be, huh? Is that it? How can that be? It doesn't matter. That's for them traumatic. And they have that post-traumatic disorder sort of side of it. Things that, you know, affect them. I'm losing track of the question now.
Oh, it's just, what does it typically look like? In terms of perhaps symptoms? Yeah,
and again, varying on the types and the reasons behind it. Like, I'll sometimes still have bad dreams. I had an accident on a mountain once and I fell, and I'll still sometimes wake up with a real start. And I'm having that same fall, you know, that side of things. I have some other ones that wake me up. And then you'll get people who will literally wake up screaming from flashbacks, etc. And if you said to me, oh, does that wear down after time? I said, no, not necessarily. Again, it's so different for each person.
Yeah, it's very diverse, yeah.
100%, yeah. I'm trying to think of a word that could describe it. Because it's so different for each person, I wouldn't like to say PTSD looks like this. I think generally it's something that's causing you some dramas in your world. And my own personal opinion is you will never get rid of it, but you can find many coping mechanisms that might help you deal with it.
And to live with it. Yeah. And I see. When soldiers return, what kind of support do you think actually helps them when it comes to PTSD and whatnot, and what doesn't?
I think if I go back in my career, there was a lack of the right types of approach. And when I say approach, in fact, one of the reasons we started the charity, to be absolutely honest, is there wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. And I suddenly realised, look, we as soldiers are all in our heads, roughy-tufty, sort of macho guys. Back then it was very much dominated by male side of things. But we don't want to share that. We don't even tell our best friend in the army, one of our mates, that we're suffering, because that's a weakness. That was the perceived thing, you know. And then if you did go and report it, somebody else would definitely find out about that, and what would it feel like? So it was very much pushed under the carpet and people hid it. So just nipping onto the sort of charity side, the reason we started that, and it was back in the day, it was called Forces Poetry, purely about poems. It was so that people serving the military, in any part of the military, anywhere in the world for that matter, they could write about stuff in a poem and publish it online, either with their true name or a false name or just anonymous, because that was them getting it out when they sort of typed it out. It was all electronic, so if they typed it all out, that was good. That's cathartic because they're expressing it even on their own computer. And then when they share it on Forces Poetry, no Flow, that means other people can read that. Therefore, you make that decision, do I put my name, do I put my name? But then people can comment under that poem or story or letter or lyric, and they can say encouraging things and say, do you know what, that's great. I know exactly where you're coming from. I had the same sort of thing. This is what happened to me. And just by that interaction, people get help. Mm-hmm. And I think that was never back there then. Now, I know that mental health approach and things have changed massively since I left which is what now 25 years ago. That's scary to think that.
Yeah, time flies.
I think it's really changed a lot, which is great. Could they do more? I think we can always do more for mental health. You know, even me, if you said, oh, is the charity when in 5-10 years when it's perfect, what else would you want to do? And I'd just say more. You know, my wife once said to me, the lottery had gone up to something like 2.6 million or whatever it was years ago. And she went, oh my God, yeah, you wouldn't want that much. And I said, I'd want 100 million. I'd want 200 million. She went, what on earth for? I said, not for me, but imagine what I could do with a charity.
Yeah.
You know? So if somebody says, could you win too much for the charity? I go, nope.
Yeah.
You know, 100 billion pounds of magic.
As much as you could get.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The more you get, the more you can do.
Yeah. But it's very interesting with flow, because what you're doing is you're combining literature with psychology. Do you view poetry as a form of psychotherapy?
Ooh, hold on. Let me think about that. Yeah, do you know what? I often regard it as, and I've said it before, as self-therapy.
Because as you said, it's very cathartic.
Yeah. And I think one of the things there's a term we use, springboard. And if you said, well, what are you trying to do with flow? The general sort of scheme of it is we get people in to do their writing, they register on the website for free, and then they upload their poem, letter, lyric, whatever it is. But as and when we recognise people have got problems, or they reach out to us and say, look, I'm really having a tough time dealing with this, what can you advise? We don't advise. We are the springboard that says, go and speak to these guys here. These are experts. You've got the NHS, which I absolutely believe in. They've got some fantastic services. Are they absolutely overrun and you can't get in sometimes? I totally get that. Yeah. But you can also go to different areas. For example, there's a friend of mine who's now passed away, a guy I serve with. His son, Kieran, is working for an organisation called Silence of Suicide. It's an absolutely fantastic organisation. And they work in tandem with other organisations as well, because it's not a military thing. It's just about that term, suicide. How do we deal with that? We tend to try and hide that away, or we have done historically. And now you've got organisations like that who are saying, come on, guys, we need to talk about this. You know, so yeah, I think the writing I actually say, for me, definitely it was an escape. I could put things down on paper that I didn't want to share with anybody, but it was like I was telling the computer.
Exactly, it's a different name as well.
Yeah. And then I could put it onto the website, and I could see people commenting on it, and that made me think, oh, good, there's not any me out there like that. You know,
it's kind of validating those difficult feelings and expressing it in your own way, which I think is very beautiful. In your experience, how similar do you think the effects of the psychological effects of war and a toxic workplace are? Would you say there's similarities, or
I've never thought of that.
Are they vastly different? Because you've got a significant amount of experience in both sides.
I think if I was trying to do a comparison, the war side of things, it happens to you. And I don't know, maybe workplace is the same, because it kind of happens to you. Very similar, actually. Now that you've asked me that question, there's a big similarity. It's a psychological problem, you might say, generally.
Yeah.
And if you had an amazing organisation that was totally psychologically safe and they did things beautifully, they would have very few problems apart from people with personal problems, bereavements and stuff like that. They shouldn't have any infighting, toxicity in that regard. Whereas war's war.
Yeah, so
that'll never become great. You know, I mean, if you look at the recent conflicts, like especially Ukraine and all the sort of the manner of conflict now with drones, etc.
It's terrifying.
It's completely changed.
Horrible, yeah.
But it's still horrific.
Yeah.
You know, and arguably in some ways somehow more horrific. I don't know.
Yeah. Even though like a lot of conflict now is, especially if you look at the conflict in the Middle East, is very remote, but there's still a lot of trauma and you know, that comes from it. And again, going back to PTSD as a whole, do you think there's misconceptions or what's the word, stereotypes around what PTSD is? Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at mental health in general, take LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn's a classic. So I've not been on LinkedIn, I've been many years, but comparatively, you know, it wasn't around for a while. But you didn't see a lot of postings about mental health. You didn't see that sort of thing. It was, again, we kept that sort of thing hidden. Yeah. In work, people kind of keep that hidden. I think, in a very strange thing to say, I grant you, but when COVID came along, it whacked us all sideways. And then one thing I noticed very much on LinkedIn at that point, everybody was talking about everybody else and their mental health and their isolation, you know, working from home all the time. My daughter hated it, whereas my son and I thought, this is great. I loved it.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. You know, we're all different. So I think what's happened through things like that and the organisations that are coming up, like the Silence of Suicide I mentioned, then it's now out there in general society. It's being talked about a lot more. And like I said, I was recently upstairs with in students and their Pathfinder project, and those guys worked on flow, very kindly did a project each of the teams for flow. And it was fascinating to listen to what they were saying about the mental health, because I look at students and I just see students. I am now much more aware, since I've started working with the University of Birmingham as a mentor, that students are opening up about mental health and they will quite happily chat about it. And that's great. We haven't quite got that in most workplaces yet. It's very, very much better, but we need to do more of it.
But it's showing a very good sign that slow shift.
100%.
Because like, if you imagine 20 years ago, back when you were in school, it wasn't really, there's a lot more taboo and...
School?
Yeah.
Don't start. I used to get beaten every day.
Is it?
Every single day, yeah. I was outside the headmaster's office they used to have a leather strap and strap me on the hand. Yeah. And I got that so many times because Catholicism, I was brought up a Catholic. I'm not really I don't really practice any religion. I've got problems with that. But it was the three gods in one in the Catholic teaching. And logically, how can you have three people in one? So I would ask questions, I would challenge things, only from an inquiry sort of point of view, but because you're a child and these were all priests and no.
Yeah, it's seen from a different angle as someone misbehaving and, branching out. And I see, which must be quite difficult. And it goes back to what I was saying about, looking back from an autistic perspective, it makes a lot more sense.
Exactly.
But it's just something at that time that you weren't aware of, and also they weren't aware of either. And it's also very poorly understood. But with autism and PTSD, I think nowadays it's a lot more, it's a lot more better understood, which I think is a good thing. Now, taking all of this and now going into flow, what is flow?
What is flow? Well, as I said earlier, it used to be Forces Poetry. And then as it expanded, we decided we need to change things. Yep. And we wanted it to be for anyone, anywhere in the world. So we changed it to Forces Literary Organisation Worldwide for All. Now, the only reason we really put the for all on was that the domain flow was taken.
Oh, okay.
So we thought, well, we'll just add for all and that'll be great. So flow is what it now is, and it evolved from, as I said earlier, the poetry side to now poems, stories, letters and lyrics. And in fact, I've just met an amazing guy who is, quite recently diagnosed with ADD. And we were chatting about the topic of ADD, etc., neurodiversity, all the rest of it. And he said, I love music and I like lyrics. And I went, great, because we're trying to find people. I mean, the website, I'll come on to it, I'm sure, with one of the other questions, but the website's got a real problem. It's not quite doing what it should yet.
Yeah.
And I've not given it enough time. And this all comes back to the Barclays issue with not enough money, not enough time, not getting the bank account.
In enough time.
Not being able to get money, because all the people we wanted to go for grants and donations, we didn't have a bank account to put it into, so we couldn't.
Exactly. So basically halted everything.
It was just terrible, yeah.
Just one of those things where no one knows about it until it's you. Yeah. So you have to deal with it.
Exactly.
And then at that point, you can't really do anything.
But that's a bit like mental health. Sorry, just switching back.
It's a very good segue. Yeah.
Because
it's a very good segue.
You don't know about it until it happens.
Until it happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even with like PTSD, prior to this conversation, I don't know anything. Everyone knows what PTSD is, but no one really knows exactly how it is, how it manifests, what does it look like, who can get PTSD. Because before, I only viewed it as people, who maybe had a fire incident at their house or they went to war, they get PTSD. But as you said earlier, it could be anyone. Anything.
Blue light services.
Yeah.
I met two wonderful, wonderful people who were involved in the NHS. One was a doctor, one was an ambulance driver. And the ambulance driver had huge problems. And I recognised it as soon as I met her. As soon as I met her. And it was a lovely sort of evening and meal and wine. And she was just drinking, and I said, there's something behind that. And sure enough, when I talked to her partner, she said, yeah, it's pretty heavy and she's got to deal with a lot. And there you go. Yeah. I haven't driven along the roads for many years thinking, I bet blue light drivers have PTSD. It didn't occur to me, but of course, logically, of course.
Exactly, yeah. And it's one of the things that's, it's invisible, you can't see it.
And it's hidden as well.
And people, they make a lot of effort to hide it as well and to function normally. And that must be quite frustrating for a lot of people, maybe perhaps yourself as well, when they say things like, you don't look like you have PTSD, or, you don't look like you have autism. So
I get the autistic thing quite a few times. It doesn't bother me the slightest, to be honest, but I do get it. I think the only time it really bugged me was when there was a woman who was really quite aggressive about it. So stop saying that you're autistic.
Yeah.
And I went, look, if you want my certificate, I can send it to you. You know?
You want the number to my psychiatrist? Yeah.
It's strange. It's always like you shouldn't have it. You're too normal, you know?
Yeah.
You should look completely different.
You know, gatekeep condition. Yeah. So what does, what does Flow offer to the world?
I think two things. Well, one thing now and hopefully two things. The one thing is what I've sort of mentioned in some part already, where if you want to write about anything at all, and it doesn't have to be about PTSD at all, any mental health challenge, you just write it on a document electronically, whether it's a poem, letter, lyric, or anything else, stories, it doesn't matter. You can tell your own story. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And then you register on the website for free with your email, and then you upload it onto the website. It goes up there, and you can then share that link with the people you want to share it with. Or you can keep it completely private. And like I said also earlier, it's either with your name or a false name or anonymous, like that. And then we're waiting for the website. So one of our challenges at the moment is the website isn't quite doing what it's meant to do. The forum is not working as well as it should. So we're going to replace all that. And we've got an amazing organisation I'll give a shout out to, if you don't mind.
Of course,
called the Cloud Crew.
A
fantastic woman called Claire, who runs that with one of her colleagues who's also a founder. And they're very, very kindly going to be helping us sort out the website and get a new forum in there. Perfect, and as soon as that's done, we're going to relaunch completely. And we've got an amazing woman called Catherine. I'm very conscious about terms like woman, or because I'm older and she's just graduated last year. And she is our, what's it called? Social media manager.
Gotcha, yeah.
Voluntary, and she is literally waiting at the gates, bursting with energy to try and do stuff, bless her. But I said, look, there's no point in sending, thousands of people to the website right now, because they'll probably get there and go, this doesn't quite work that easy,
Gotcha. Until that relaunch and everything.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Gotcha.
So,
is it just, so you said it's not just PTSD that people can write about?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I mean, that was the initial thing. So when we first started out, it was all about PTSD, soldiers, that sort of thing, army, military. Whereas then, it was literally one day we got more and more emails that were saying, look, we're not associated to the army or the military and anything, but I want to write a story about loss.
Yeah,
I lost my dad recently, and I just thought, of course. And then somebody said to me, Mac, we need to open this up. Now, the thing is, it's still called Forces, literally, organisation. And whilst there is an argument to say, should we maybe change that so that it's like completely,
universal
neutral?
For everyone.
There's a part of me that also thinks, well, it was founded on the Forces focus with PTSD.
Gotcha.
So I don't want to lose that. I don't want to get a sort of disservice to the people that founded originally and they were on there and they're still on there. But it's for absolutely anything. And it can be a worry. It could be like exams. Look at the pressures that people go under through universities, colleges, the exams are going to be coming up this year, etc. and again. And they want to write about that pressure. Get on there and write about it, release it. The second thing that we will be doing, hopefully, will be the Springboard project, and that's to do with housing. Gotcha. So when I was living in Birmingham, I walked around the streets every week. I looked for people who were true veterans. Some would say they were, that they weren't. But when you found those, I just thought, how do we get you into housing? And it was a real tough sort of work, And in fairness, some of the homeless guys didn't help themselves, but that's something I'd love to do. And that's going to take a huge amount of money. So at the moment, we're chatting with a number of housing associations. And what we're trying to say to them is basically, look, we want to create, at the moment, we've got this dream, and it is a dream, have 10 houses around the UK. And those houses will be focused for veterans on the street. Now, if there aren't any veterans on the street, we'll take anyone. So it's not a case which is exclusive to veterans.
Gotcha. But yeah.
And then working with the housing association and hopefully with one or maybe more of their houses in that area, we'll start getting people into there. But there's a bit of a twist here, because it isn't just accommodation and they can do what they want. It's almost a bit of a boot camp. So we're getting people in and saying, right, we're going to get you some more long-term housing with this housing association we're linked to here in this area. But also what we're going to do is we're going to get you spruced up, sorted out, some training, because obviously all the leadership stuff that we do, the communication skills, presentation skills, we'll teach all that to these people that are in our house.
Gotcha.
And afterwards as well. We won't just say, you're in a house right outside, no, you can't have it. It's when they get their more permanent housing, we'll still catch them in.
It's not just a case of fixing a homeless issue, but then really building them up and putting them on their grounds, and so they can, fend for themselves.
And this comes back to a military experience where we see get recruits in, and arguably you'd say, we used to give them a bit of a hard time and break them down a bit, but then build them up. And it's something similar. So you can have in the house, for example, if you come into one of our houses, you'd have block jobs to do, which means you've got to help clean the stairs, the kitchen, take out rubbish. Your rooms will all be inspected. So it's not militaristic, like, oh my goodness. It's just, we're going to make sure that you are looking after yourself, everything's cleanliness, you're helping your colleagues, and you'll be volunteering for the organisation. And then when you move out of that, as soon as possible, we get you more permanent housing. You still help as much as you can, not yet have to, our organisation. And for those people coming out, you become a mentor for them. So it's that sort of virtuous cycle, you might say, that the circle that goes round. And gradually we get these people to springboard them into more permanent housing, and we just keep that flowing. Excuse the pun.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing initiative, yeah.
I can't wait. I've got a belief in my head that it'll work, but
I really do hope so, yeah. But we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah.
Where do you see flow in the future?
Wow. If you said to me, where's it going to be, or if it got to where it's really great, I'd say we'd be doing an amazing amount of work with the housing. We're having lots and lots of people. We'd have experts who are then available through the housing associations and ourselves, where you can get people on, because the housing associations do amazing work getting people back into work. It's fantastic stuff. I mean, there's a particular person I'm thinking of who was on one of our programs at Walsall Housing Group, and she's absolutely brilliant. And her job was about, recruitment side, helping people understand how to get jobs, helping them get the jobs. And we'd love to be able to work with them to do that. But also on the PTSD mental health side of things, we want to be able to get counsellors, therapists, etc., available that I'd imagine the housing association maybe hasn't got. So again, if we're very successful, we get the grants and the funding and the fundraising, we'll be able to afford that ourselves.
Gotcha, that'd be great. And that'll be like a really good position, I think, for Flow. Hopefully it gets to that stage.
Me too.
And for anyone listening or any audience members that want to get support for either themselves or family or friends, how can they do that? What's available?
I think the first step I would probably say is that when people think about doing this, they're a bit nervous. So I'd say, look, go to the website, just have a look at some of the poems, stories, letters, lyrics, whatever it is you like. And then, especially if you're a lyricist, right? Because I think we've got 2, maybe 3 lyrics on there at the moment. So it's quite new. So all you got to do is pop your website, your email address in, register for free, and then you'll have access to upload whatever you want, make comments on other writing that you can find in there. And the only warning I'd say is that if you are a bit delicate, be careful what you look for, because some of the poems and stories on there are quite raw.
Yeah, I can imagine they can be quite heavy.
Yeah, some of them are really quite so heavy. And we often say that with people who say, well, my child wants to put a poem up. We say, that's fine, but just please monitor what they read, because it can be a bit, hard for a child to read stuff like that. But going back to your question is go and explore first. See if you like the idea. If you like it, register, no problem at all. And then, just see how that goes. And you either stay on it and use it or you don't. And I think the nice thing is that once you get the courage to start publishing stuff and you can see that it's well received, you can get that link and you can send it to somebody and they can read it and they can say, all right, I didn't know, but you can be courageous enough to spread your story.
Which in and of itself is very cathartic as well, being able to do that. And if anyone wants to, help or volunteer, what avenues are there for Flow?
You know what? If we got 100 volunteers tomorrow, I'd be a bit stuck because we're at this pause bit with the website
with
problem.
The bottleneck,
Yeah. So I think, even if somebody, for example, the next week, whenever your podcast comes out, sorry, I'm not quite sure, then if they wanted to or they're interested in finding out more about it, they could drop me an email. It's on the website, just the contact form or my email's up there, I think. And they could say, look, what sort of things do you do? What sort of things do volunteers do? Because one of the things we do like is to have people from all age groups. Really important for us that, because I don't understand younger generations, arguably. It's like Catherine, our social media manager, just chatting to her and just how hearing her talk, I think, I'm actually disconnected in some regard. So it's great having somebody like that. But the more people we get that volunteer and who even might want to go on as administrators onto the website and the forum especially, it's fantastic, because the more people we've got on there answering things, giving their opinions.
More it flows better. Another pun.
There we go. That's it.
The Okay, the last question, I was going to ask this, but it just came to my mind. Last question I want to ask is, with a lot of the work you've been doing over the past few years, and for most of your life, it's a lot of both professional development, but also mental health development as well. And also kind of bridging those two together as well. And also, you as a person are also very direct. So what I want to ask is, if you could go back in time to yourself as a child, what would you say?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah. It's a bit of a loaded question, but
I don't know. I can answer. The child bit is problematic. I had an amazing childhood, beautiful family. Yeah. 4 older sisters who bullied me. I'm just going to put that on, so I can send it to them.
Yeah. Their character development. Yeah.
No, they were absolutely lovely, looked after me, but I always tease them about that. And I'm the youngest, so I can say that.
Yeah.
So that side of it was great. School was an absolute nightmare, but that's the way it was. It's completely changed now, as you obviously know. I think if I was going to go back and change, I probably wouldn't join the army. And that's why I said why, because when I was in the army, later in my years, I realised that actually when you join an organisation like that, there is a point that you can get to, possibly, not guaranteed, but there's a limit. Whereas when I became a consultant, I suddenly realised the world opened up completely.
Yeah, there is no limit.
Yeah, you can work as much as you need to or as little. So at the moment, I love the fact I can pick and choose organisations I work with, because I go in and chat to them first, find out what's going on.
See what they're about. And there's that flexibility, that freedom.
And I think you're open to change. You've got some senior leaders in this room who obviously want to change. And especially when they say, we want to do the programme as well, I just think, well done.
Yeah.
Because so many organisations don't do that, So sorry, I'm going off again. I'd probably say, work-wise, get to a consultant stage as soon as possible, because that gives you that freedom.
And just forget the military, put it aside.
And if I had, I think I'd definitely change is I'd try and get diagnosed really quickly on the autistic side
so
and
you
PTSD.
Understand a bit more earlier.
Having those diagnoses are a bit of paper. What's that going to do? Not a lot. But understanding your condition and then reading up about it and seeing all the jigsaw pieces fall into place.
Form of therapy.
Fantastic.
Yeah. You should write a book about it, I feel like there's a lot
I'm actually writing a book called The Moccasin Approach.
There you go.
I've been writing for about 20 years, so don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll read it when it comes out, hopefully. And maybe you can come back in as a guest and discuss it.
Launch it.
Yeah, it's like a little launch. Yeah. But thank you so much. It's been an amazing talk today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you guys next week.